So if you caught me over on Instagram Live just moments ago, you're going to realize that I've had goats biting at my hydrangeas behind me. And so I had to go put my goats away over in the goat barn before I could join here. But hey, nice to see you. We're enjoying one of our beautiful summer days here in fall. So gorgeous, British Columbia. So I'm going to be outside as very long as I possibly can. I am going to share with you a question that one of the moms here had shared, and then I'm going to answer it off the cuff. So I have read probably, I don't know, I've got 5 or 6 pages of questions just from the last week or so that people have been asking me. So I'm going to share a question from Mary Elizabeth today and answer off the cuff. But before I do, I just want to mention that I released a podcast episode today with the book that convinced me to homeschool. It's called The Homeschooling Option by Lisa Rivero, How to Decide When It's Right for Your Family. So if you happen to be someone that's curious about homeschooling, wondering if they should homeschool, or even, and this is the thing, this book is not just for the new person that's considering homeschooling. It definitely is, because it convinced me. And I wasn't expecting to pick up a book that day about homeschooling at all. It was a lark. I picked it up in a book. Over the course of a week, I read the book, and that changed our lives. That actually happened. That's not just something clever to say, it really did. And it changed our next couple decades. But this book is not just for the new person or the person that's considering homeschooling. This book is for the person that wants more confidence or wants a booster of confidence, because I picked up that book for the Homeschool Mama Book Club, and then I decided this is such a great book, I have to bring that into the podcast. And so I released that episode today, but I'm rereading essentially all the notes that I made about the book and rereading all the important parts of the book. Really, they're all important because they really are. It's an amazing book that you can access for free. It's completely downloadable PDF online. But anyways, this book, when I'm rereading it, I realize I don't think I remembered all the different elements of what was inside this book, what compelled me to begin homeschooling. I started homeschooling 2 years after I read the book. And I've been homeschooling, well, I graduated homeschooling this past year, and I've been homeschooling for more than a decade and a half, not 2 decades. And I look back at the themes and the discussion points and the quotes and the thoughts in this book, and all I think is, are you kidding me? These are the things that I've come to understand about homeschooling, or the homeschool life, or the homeschool mom experience, or learning, or how to engage kids, all the things. And I wasn't reading this book every year to remind me of what I understood. It was me living this homeschool life out, coming to the understanding that, oh, this really was consistent with my experience about homeschooling. So if you want to get the short version of it, you could just, head over to my podcast, Homeschool Mama Self-Care. But I use 6 quotes in that podcast episode, and I don't think I made it out of chapter 2. I have so much underlined in this book. It's a marvel to me that more people don't know it as well as John Holt or John Taylor Gatto or all the, significant homeschool, unschool, self-educated authors. But it's a really great book. So I wanted to share that with you. I put the 5-day wellness challenge into email, so people have options to watch the 5-day wellness challenge in their own time. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll get you the link for that. Tuesday afternoons are the afternoons that I have one-on-one conversations with homeschool moms that are curious about coaching or mentoring for homeschooling or for life coaching. I'm a certified life coach, which means that this isn't just homeschool mentoring. I understand a lot about the homeschool life for a good reason, a lot of experience, and I've been actually mentoring or engaging homeschool moms for many, many years before I began this. But I'm a homeschool mom or a mentor and a certified life coach. So that means the women that I often work with, I'm helping people to live authentically. I'm helping them to shed things that aren't working. whether that is the way they're showing up in relationships with significant people in their lives, or whether that's with their children. That could be building boundaries. As I've spoken to before, it's a big element of discussion that we often have, bolstering who we are and building boundaries so we get really clear on who we are and who we aren't. Confidence. There's a lot of discussion around confidence, getting clear on what purpose is, your intentions are. Sometimes I'm having conversations with homeschool moms about how to make their routines work, or to make their homeschool family life work, but then the discussion isn't usually about homeschooling. It's more about fleshing out what's the most important thing for you. What are the things that really matter in your life in this short season of this one sweet life? And so I go into all sorts of different directions when it comes to life coaching. And if you're curious about life coaching, just connect with me and I'll get you a link and we can have a conversation. Show and tell. Oh, I wanted to do a little show and tell. And then I forgot. I really like show and tell. That is like the one thing I loved about school. Some kids will talk about recess. I loved show and tell. And I didn't have much to share. So in my certain phase of elementary school, I would make stuff up. True confession. I don't know why I did this, but I clearly was not doing all the things I was saying I was doing. I remember not having very much to share. So I was last night, I slept in the bathtub all night while the water was running. I have no idea why I said that. Or my grade 1 teacher had showed us a picture on the wall of this giant volcano. And she was explaining the dynamics. I don't know if it was a geological discussion in grade 1, but there was a discussion about her volcano. And I said, I have stood on that exact place before it blew up or it exploded. I don't know what got in my head to say stuff like that. Anyways, I've outgrown that phase. If I tell you a story, it's real. Okay, so I don't have anything for show and tell, except I guess a true confessional that I actually lied a lot when I was a little girl. But so then the thing that I wanted to chat with you about was Mary Elizabeth's question. So I'm going to share with you Mary Elizabeth's question. She said, "Thanks for taking the time to reach out and nice to meet you. So I'm a homeschool mama. I have 5 children aged 10, 9, 7, 5, and 18 months. We have homeschooled from the start. I struggle with consistency, finding a rhythm and routine, balancing work or housework and schoolwork, and finding a way to effectively school all my kids. Between housework, good shopping, cooking, bills, etc., and with a big variety of ages, I feel once I kind of figure something out, a new stage or age comes in. Also, getting everyone on board is so hard. I'm pretty relaxed and love the unschool approach, but I think I've been way too unstructured, so now I'm getting lots of resistance. And finding ways to keep everyone content when I have to do one-on-one time with a child, that's tough. I want to find something that works for us, not so tightly structured, but more solid for school. A few days a week, I want to do something. I want my kids not to fight me about homeschooling, not get so much resistance when we're doing homeschooling. I'm struggling to juggle it all. Last year wasn't so bad, but this year my baby is a toddler. I want to find a realistic goal." I have so many things to respond to here, but it's lovely to meet you, Mary Elizabeth, and thank you for sharing your story. 10, 9, 7, 5, and 18 months. Wow. That's a lot right now. That is a lot. So I just want to stop and honor the fact that I'll breathe for you. That's a lot. It is just going to, some seasons of our lives are just going to be a lot. And it is so nice to meet you too. We have you've homeschooled from the start. I was just having this conversation with Bonnie Landry. She is a 30-year veteran homeschool mom. She's homeschooled 7 kids, has now 10 grandkids, and I was chatting with her on Instagram Live moments ago, talking about homeschool transitions. one of the big transitions she was speaking to was when the kids are little. We have it compelling to move through that phase and get our to-do list done because it feels like we're never getting everything done. And in my experience, that is because you're not. Okay, state the obvious, but you're not, and it doesn't feel good. The wonder of having single tasking time, it is so centering. It feels so peacemaking when you can think your thoughts and do the activity that you want to do, whatever it is you've decided to do, whether it's dishes or teaching your kiddo something or driving somewhere or shopping or anything. But when we have a chance to do something with a single mind, think our thoughts, be present, it feels less chaotic. And in my experience, in the experience of other homeschool moms that have gone before, when you have little kids, and there's a lot of them, aka more than one of them, then it is almost impossible to function in a way where it feels like everything is always smooth and comfortable. And it feels like you're present and you're centered and at peace. Well, that's not very encouraging, is it? Except that I'm saying that because I'm just trying to paint the picture of what I'm pretty sure you already know. It isn't always smooth, and it's not going to be. It will gradually move into that, just like you identified that toddler stage does make it a whole lot more challenging. They're so cute though. From my perspective, they're just adorable. They're just always like so curious and moving in and out of things. But I also remember what it was like having one and trying to homeschool, and you're like, could you sit down please? How do I trap them in a high chair and feed them all day long? Or get them to color or play plasticine. I dated myself there. Nobody buys plasticine anymore. But anyways, I know how hard it is when you have a toddler who is busy, let's just say busy, and it changes that dynamic. Or even, as you're saying, 9, 7, 10, 9, 7, 5, and 18 months. And in some ways, at least in my experience, the 10, 9, 7 ages are actually kind of the sweet spots, but it depends on the specific child and if there's any challenges. And also it doesn't matter even if everybody is in a sweet spot, that's just a lot of voices in the room. So I just want to honor and acknowledge that stage, sometimes it's just a lot. And there is a reason why I say find time away somehow, some way. If you have a partner, all of a sudden he is definitely going, or she, but is definitely going to learn how to be present in the homeschool or be able to take care of the kids for an hour while you drive away. I've had many conversations where people are telling me that they have project rooms or they have something that they want to accomplish at home. And if you can then therefore get your partner or your mom or a friend or someone you exchange kids with once a week so you can get that time away, if you can get them to take your children away from your house, that would be the most beautiful thing in my experience. Having time in our own homes is the sweetest spot, in my opinion. Quiet time in my own home. Can I hear an amen? You said you struggle with consistency, finding a rhythm and routine, balancing housework and schoolwork, and finding a way to effectively school all my kids. So if I unpack that a little bit, I would, between you and me, if we were sitting and having a conversation one-on-one, I would ask you, what does consistency look like for you? I think the reason it's so valuable to create a predictable routine is because we feel like we're doing something a lot of the time. If consistency means doing it every day without mistake, it won't happen because life happens. And sometimes we need to teach ourselves to be more flexible, that everything can't always be consistent. It can't always happen without fail. And having a conversation with a mom this morning who has much older kids than you, really a discussion about very similar concepts. The to-do list is ever present. There can always be 30 things on the to-do list. You may have 30 things on your to-do list for the rest of your life. And assessing whether or not the things that you have on the to-do list are meaningful and worth your life is another question. It's worth really clarifying for ourselves what matters to us. Let's take housework, for example. I was married in 1999, and I lived, I think, independently since I was 1993, 94. And I was kind of on the OCD side when it came to housework. When I was pre-mothering, everything was clean. If you came for a coffee, the taps for the bathroom were shone. There were no water droplets in the sink. There was no dishes on the counter in the sink. It was all neatly put away, perhaps concerningly neat. This changed over the course of a few decades. It didn't change in my early years of mothering because I had this idea that I could have everything cleaned, tidied, and as presentable as it was when I was 23, 24. And now you should see my house. Because so way back then I was not happy when everything wasn't perfect. But when it was perfect, it wasn't that I was happy. It was just that it was the way it was supposed to be. Now I'm happy and my house is not perfectly presentable like that. And I'm fine with it. I create a plan once a week, typically a couple hours on a Saturday morning. I get my podcast playlist ready or my YouTube watch later playlist, and I listen to stuff as I'm cleaning. And then when a certain time hits, then I say, I'm not cleaning anymore. So if that means that my upstairs is a disaster, which really doesn't make any sense because there's only one kiddo up there, but the three sisters are no longer up there, and yet somehow it still all gets messy. But anyway, I digress. Even though upstairs is messy, or it's unclean, or the floors haven't been cleaned, when the timer goes off, or my last podcast on that playlist plays, I'm done. Then I'm not cleaning anymore. Because what I've learned is there is always cleaning. For that many years, being married since 99, or having an independent household since 93 or 94, I have learned cleaning is ever present. The only thing you really have to be concerned about is whether a social worker is concerned about it. Then it might be an issue. So struggling to find consistency. If I were having a conversation with you, I would ask you, what does that mean for you? Consistency. Sometimes when I'm doing Q&As or having conversation points like this, they're anonymous and I haven't met you officially, and then I don't know all the context or how you're seeing things, and it's super useful for me to have conversations with people to understand what they really mean by certain things or what their goals are. Finding a rhythm and routine. So I have learned that every year things would change. And whether that be a child wanted more autonomy in something, or whether we shifted extracurricular activities, or, so many possibilities. We moved somewhere and how far it took to drive to town was different than the last place. All those different things can change the routine that you create. But I have a very popular podcast episode that I put out a couple months ago, how to streamline your routine. I can put that in the comment section down below, but I ask questions about how you are framing your life and what matters to you to help you clarify what you want to put into your routine. But just like I had a conversation this morning, and I have as a conversation in many places, totally outside the homeschool mom realm as well, I have these conversations about living your life on purpose. Because I have learned, I'll just tell you it in story. Once upon a time, I built my dream home. Then I read a book about homeschooling and I decided we would homeschool. And in the very same week, my husband had an epiphany that we should move and we should simplify our lives. So within 1 week, our entire lives changed. 2 years later, we moved. We sold that dream home. We sold a lot of the things inside that home. We decided to simplify our lives, which meant in our minds to get rid of everything, which could have sounded like a good idea, except I still had 4 kids and I needed stuff like colanders. And I missed things like my U2 Joshua Tree album. But anyway, I digress again. All these different things had value to me, but I got rid of them because I wanted to simplify my life. I learned deleting stuff is not the key to simplifying your life. Leaning into the things that matter is what simplifies your life. Because when you decide that you want to spend time doing something that feels meaningful or creative or energizing, or you're doing something that is spending time with your kids because you really wanted to introduce them to, say, a certain movie and you wanted them to always see this thing and be part, enable them to have a memory with you that comes from your past. Or maybe you want to, create a roster of memories with a partner or a best friend or whatever it is that you think is important. If you consistently do that, you feel like you're living your life on purpose. And the things that don't matter, like keeping the kitchen sink spotless, it doesn't matter anymore. Then you don't feel like you have to do those things. So instead of deleting the things and trying to simplify your life, I would suggest leaning into the what do you want to do? The beauty of this homeschool life is that it invites you to step off the beaten path of the way that everyone else is living. However, you could just transition into the way most people around you are homeschooling, and therefore you're just off the beaten path, but not off the beaten path. You are invited to take a step off the beaten path and live your life the way you would like to live. Determining what means something or what you value for your life, and then clarify what is your rhythm and routine based on that. If you tell yourself, I want to be a morning person, and I love the idea of having like pancakes and eggs at 7 o'clock every morning, and we'll do it like homeschool kitchen science, and then each child will take the role of kitchen cleaner from 7:30 to 8, and then they're going to do their top 5 things. By the way, this is like a note or a page from my notebook in my early homeschool days. But then we're going to each do our top 5 grooming things in the morning, like brush our teeth, make our bed, brush our hair, forget the other 2. And anyways, do our top 5 before we come downstairs. And at 8 o'clock, I'll ring the bell. We'll have a basket with our morning routine. I could keep going. But if you are wanting to create a routine like that, but that would mean that you actually had to wake up the kids, and you also had to wake up yourself because you like to go to bed somewhere between midnight and 1 o'clock, you're setting yourself up for frustration. And this idea of having to get up at a certain time, because it sounds like an ideal approach, probably works for somebody. Works for me now that I'm perimenopausal, it works, but it doesn't work. It wouldn't have worked for me when I was 30. No thanks. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody for various reasons. You get to decide whether it should work for you right now and what matters to you. So include the things that matter to you in a day. Write them down. Use my time audit to actually clarify what you're spending your time on right now. Then write the things you want to do down. Create margins around that time. Experiment with it for 3 months. Come back after 3 months and say, is this working? If it isn't, change it up, delete something. By the way, this whole approach is less expensive too, because you're less likely to do as much extracurricular stuff. Okay, so you said you want to find a way to effectively school all your kids. I would have to know what you mean by effective. I think I won't even guess what that means necessarily, because the idea of effectively schooling, could that mean like following what the learning outcomes are for your province or your state? Or does that mean so that everybody's paying attention all the time? Or does that mean to not have gaps? I'm curious what you actually would say there. If you can put your thoughts in the comment section, then I can still respond to that. So you said between housework, shopping, cooking, bills, etc., with a big variety of ages, you feel like once you figure something out, a new age or stage comes in. Yep. that's yep. Here's a stage I didn't even know existed because I haven't been here yet. I'm having this chat with Bonnie Landry over on Instagram today, and she's talking about the transitions in a homeschool life. We're talking about the new homeschool mom transition. We're talking about what it's like to be pregnant and postpartum and that transition. We're talking about the transition into the 3rd, 4th year when you start to ease into the way you're doing it and you're happy to do it the way you're doing it. You start to transition into, obviously, the high school years when you have your oldest go into high school, or she said when you're driving, the first kid's driving, that's a transition. Also, by the time your 2nd or 3rd child is driving, you don't have to drive so much. That's a beautiful transition. But then there's a transition of launching, which I did for the 3rd time this summer. Highly not recommended. It'd be much better for you to just help them live in the basement with their video games. It'll be easier on your mama heart. Just trust me on this. And then later, there's another transition where they really don't come back as often. And it's called when they get married or partnered. You probably never see me say that face or put that face on anything live, but that's sad. That's sad. But you can babysit their grandkids, right? So yeah, as soon as you figure something out, then it changes. Yep. Also, getting everyone on board is so hard. Yep. Yep. It's just gonna be, everybody's not always gonna be on board at the same time. The one element, character element that I almost never speak to is flexibility. There's a reason I don't speak to it, because I don't do it very well. And despite the fact that I've had 4 kids of my own, we definitely had days where all sorts of stuff was going on. And I don't know if I'd use the word chaos, but if you know what that feels like, it felt like things were just all over the place and it wasn't happening the way I wanted. There were days like that. And yep, everybody doesn't want to jump on board because they just don't feel like it today. That's a thing. It's called being human, and flexibility compels you to, I would say, lean into acceptance of things just really not being consistently perfect. It isn't. It just isn't a thing. You said you're pretty relaxed and love the unschool thing. That is beautiful. And that took me years to figure out, to lean into that. But you said, I think I have been way too unstructured, so now I'm getting lots of resistance. Thank you for saying that. I have thought that so many times, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that. So maybe I should be chit-chatting with other unschool moms more about that discussion point. But that was my experience. That's why I went from radically unschooling. Actually, I was classically homeschooling for 3 or 4 years. Pretty hardcore classically homeschooling, 8 hour a day kind of thing, 3 read alouds every day. And then I'll just let you just absorb what I just said. Yes, I did. So then when I found John Holt's book on a library bookshelf somewhere and read about how children fail, that's his title for his book, I discovered that it didn't have to be the way, I wasn't having to homeschool the way I was. And it wasn't more effective the way I was doing it. So then I decided that based on that book and my understanding of my oldest daughter, she was putting up a lot of resistance around how we were doing it. Understandably. Of course, I was just trying to do the right thing, but understandably, she's putting up resistance. So then I discover unschooling, and I bring her to a Starbucks inside a Safeway in Fort St. John, British Columbia. And I say, Hannah, we are never going to homeschool again. We're unschooling. And she was just excited. And then 6 months later, the kids were restless. Not her, but the other kids were restless. And it just felt like there is just too much, as you said, unstructured. And then I was starting to feel like I'm getting resistance from the other kids. Well, that was confusing. That is the reason why I am not 100% stickler of maintaining any method, even unschooling. Because if it is not working for the child in front of you, then what's the point? There is no point. So do whatever works. If you like unschooling, but it's not entirely working for you, then don't do it. Then move into something with more structure. Having said that, that can be challenging when the kids are used to a certain pattern or routine. But if you want to chat, we can chat. Do a deep dive of that. Finding ways to keep everyone content when I have to do one-on-one time with a child is tough. It is. And there's some kids that make it harder. And, we have to all have at least one so that we can be nice mothers that are friendly on the playground, not telling other mothers how we know how to parent properly and they don't. So just between an older, can I call myself a senior mother, a more veteran mom to another mom, I just want to say people like you more when you haven't got everything figured. And the mother on the playground that has the perfect kids, that believes she's done everything right so that her kids are perfect, just be glad that that's not you. Okay. Probably not the answer you were thinking I was going to share. And also, you can't always make them content. If you're meaning occupied so you can actually do something one-on-one, there are different ways that you could do that. I think there's a really beautiful reason why we should keep screen time, how do you say? I can't think of the words. Why we should create restrictions on screen time. Because when you need a break or when you really need to do something like one-on-one something, then you actually have time to do that. And between you and me, I actually think that they're going to, if they haven't already, come out with a lot of research that says being on the screen all the time, really not good for the brain. They might have already come out with that research. I want to find something that works for us, you said, not so tightly structured, but more solid for school. A few days a week, I want to do something. Okay, you know what? Then that's what I would encourage you to do. Doesn't matter if a kiddo is not that interested in doing something. You as the mother leader, you can decide how you want to engage something. Might I suggest you always do an assessment, maybe a few weeks later, maybe a few days later, and say, okay, why is this working for us? Or why isn't this working for us? Whatever routine you've created. You can say to your kids, I have something I'd love to do with you, and we're going to do it together at such and such o'clock, or after lunch, or something. And you can test to see how it goes. And expect pushback. Expect that maybe you have to abandon the entire routine, and that maybe you were wrong, maybe it didn't work, or maybe you need to do it differently. Expect that things aren't going to, it's just not going to flow quite like you thought. If there's anything I've learned from homeschooling, it is you only think you've got it figured, and then just like you said, something shifts, and then you keep moving in another direction. That's not just homeschooling, that's motherhood. Really, that's life. But as a mother, yeah, you're going to experience that on repeat. So you just experiment, do many experiments, see how it goes. Ask yourself if there is pushback. Why is there? What's going on? Maybe it's a relational challenge that you have. Maybe it's they aren't capable to doing something for as long as you think they are. Or maybe they're really challenged by something. Maybe there's an issue in how they're engaging their learning, or things aren't quite structured the way maybe the other kids, how their brains are structured. Maybe their brains are structured differently and they're really not capable to something. Be willing to be wrong, and maybe be willing to accept that your first ideas of, creating this amazing routine weren't so great. Maybe you want to jump ship yourself. You said, I want my kids not to fight about homeschooling, not get so much resistance when we're doing homeschooling. I'm struggling to juggle it all. Well, I want to honor the fact that it is a lot struggling to juggle it all, especially, I mean, it's a lot whether you have 5 kids or not, but it definitely is a lot when you have 5 kids. I wish I could have a cup of tea with you somewhere here. That'd be super fun. I would love to have a circle in my front yard, all of us having a chit chat. Of course, you're always welcome to come to the Homeschool Mama support group. I'm calling it the Homeschool Mom Room on Friday mornings. It's Zoom, but we're joining this Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, to talk about strategies for the highly sensitive mom in the homeschool. So if you're curious, ask me for a link. So you said you want your kids not to fight you about homeschooling. If I was sitting having a chat with you, I would ask you, what does the fight look like? What is it you're expecting? How long are you expecting them to engage? Who's fighting? What's the context? What's been going on in your family, or what's been going on in your relationship with each of your kids? And then I would ask you, do they want to do the thing? If they don't want to do the thing, I would expect a fight, or pushback at least, or a little resistance or something. Because especially when we're younger, we don't understand that sometimes there are some things that we have to do. And hear me out here if you're like 100% consent-based, autonomous-based in your focus. Here's some things that we have to do. Some people will say brush your teeth, but you don't have to brush your teeth. You can totally go spend a few $1,000s every year to get crowns and cavities filled. No problem. You don't have to brush your teeth. It'll be expensive, but you do have to stay on the right side of the road. If you are here in Canada, you do have to stop at a stop sign, or at least a rolling stop. You have to stop at a stop sign. You have to, slow down when there's a pedestrian crossing a crosswalk. There are some things you have to do. Okay, so in the context of the homeschool, though, really in the context of a family, I would say this. You as a mother can expect your child to do something. Yeah, you can. If you need to go, bring your baby brother or her baby brother to the hospital to get to emerge, you're not going to say, honey, would you please go get your seatbelt on? You would just say, get in the car, let's go. And so sometimes we decide as moms that we're going to do certain things. But I've learned these things, no matter what the child's personality is like. Some kids will resist more if you ask them to do things because that's their personality. They want more autonomy. Other kids will be more, agreeable or compliant. They will go with you because they want to please you. But eventually, if you ask a child too many things, they will push back, or they will give you some resistance, because no human likes being told what to do all the time, period. And yet, there are also times where we expect certain things and we need them to happen. But when we expect them to happen, we cannot expect that our kids are going to be happy about it. I wish they could be, because I know our intentions are really good towards our kids, and we have many, many intentions in different areas of our lives. But they just aren't always happy that we chose certain things for them. And so then sometimes we do need to accept that there is going to be resistance, and they're not always going to love whatever we're suggesting. Also, the other thing is that sometimes kids fight because it's a way of learning or growing. And irritating as it can be at times, especially overwhelming if it's happening too often, it is a reality of family life. And when you share that I'm struggling to juggle it all, I would say this, yes, very common experience. And I would just say, then drop a few balls. I heard this in Charlotte Jones. I was going to say Caroline Leaf's podcast. Charlotte Jones' podcast yesterday, her live on her Working Homeschool Mom Facebook group. She shared about trying to balance. And I really loved, so many of the things that she said. You should, if you're a working homeschool mom in any capacity, you should jump over there and get some practical tips and tools from her. So she's talking about balance. and essentially saying it's not a thing. It's not a thing. But being fully present in whatever you're doing is it's a thing. It makes you feel satisfied, and it also makes you feel like you're accomplishing a lot. And she also shared about sometimes you just let go. You have to just let go of some things that you thought were really good. Like, the kitchen sink being fully clean. It's definitely let go of in my home. And the last thing that you shared was, last year wasn't so bad, but this year my baby is a toddler. Yeah, that is more challenging. And I want to find a realistic goal. So this is what I would say, Mary Elizabeth, is do a time audit. Definitely check with me if you want to connect with me and have a deeper conversation about this. But do a time audit to clarify what you really want to include in your life right now. From one graduated homeschool mom to a mom that's just like full on in the thick of it, girlfriend. I know it seems like it's going to be like this forever, and it might be for a season, but it really will quiet down, and you really will feel like you're getting all the things you want done, and it really will feel like it's more balanced, and you'll be able to juggle more. It will happen. So I hope that that has helped serve some of the questions or the thoughts that you've had. I'm going to go jump on over to YouTube Live to share a little bit more about this book, The Homeschooling Option. If anyone is interested in that, the Homeschool Mom Room on Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and get some tools, whether you're a highly sensitive mom or not, whether you are a mom with emotions or not. So yes, you apply. You're welcome to join us. And I hope you have a really great homeschool week. We'll talk to you soon.